Home Sweet Home. I think that's going to ring quite a good bell, and it must be quite a different meaning because now you're doing American Idiot, you're back home in Canada.
Yeah.
How's the feeling like?
It's great. It's so awesome to be able to open this show here. I also spent 2 years in this very theater doing Jersey Boys, so to come back to this theater is amazing. And since the show's called American Idiot, it's kind of funny being a Canadian in that show. But it's great. It's a really emotional moment for me. On stage yesterday, we did a preview, and I'm sure this evening with a lot of my.
I was on Twitter and it was just like American Idiot.
Yeah. On stage tonight, I'm sure I'm going to be an emotional mess, but it's great because the story itself in the show is about 3 guys coming back home. So yeah.
Now, speaking of theater, how did you get about in theater? Because the question I always ask is, if you go to film it, like, it's stardom and whatnot, going to TV, it's like, cool, I'm on TV.
Yeah.
But what attracted you to theater?
I've always been a singer myself, and I went to high school at the Etobicoke School of the Arts, which is like one of the best and most amazing schools in the history of schools, I think. And I still go back and hang out there and teach and try and like guest teach and stuff like that. But it's great. And it was I went to audition for that school, and I was like, which one's the singing one? And they were like, that's the music theater program. And I was like, oh, okay. And I didn't realize that involved dancing and acting. I was like, I didn't even know what music theater was. So I just showed up and sort of went to the audition, and there was a dance call, and I started that, and they were like, you're actually pretty good at this. And I was like, no, I'm not, but that's okay. And then I got to the school, and I got into the school, and I went, and I went to my first dance class, and they were like, you're actually really good at this. And I was like, no, I'm not, but I'll entertain you for a while. But it turned out that I was actually fairly good at it, and dancing was something that came naturally, and I was always a singer, and music theater is something that really, it is about singing, dancing, and acting. And it was something that as I did more and more and more, I became more obsessed with, and it made me, it made me feel good, and the challenge of, trying to do those things really well, and to convey that emotion, and to be able to sing, and to be able to do that, and also, in this show we get to play guitar, which is amazing. Like that's like a fourth thing that you get to do.
You guys are just rocking on stage.
Yeah, so it's great to be able to do all of those things. But the reason I got into music theater is, in high school I started auditioning for things, and once I found out that there was this thing that was like auditioning, and you get a job, and you get addicted to that feeling. You get addicted to that the positive feelings of getting a job and feeling that, and thankfully, it's worked out pretty well for me so far. I've been doing it for like 9 years now, so
that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great.
Wow, that's quite a long time.
Yeah, so it's been amazing so far. But
you being in theater, would you ever decide if to make the move to film or TV?
I think most people would. Like, my passion is theater. A lot of the money is in film and TV. It's also, you can make a lot of money in film and TV in a short amount of time, whereas like theater, it takes up your time. The thing that I love about theater is that it happens every day. It's like, it's like baseball. It's like you can turn on the TV and there's always a baseball game on when it's baseball season. So it's something that I love the thought of doing a show eight times a week and rediscovering that emotional feeling and that connection. And, it's also something where you get that constant and positive reinforcement from an audience immediately, right there. So like you finish a number and you can tell how they feel. Like, there's a difference between polite applause and people really liking themselves. So, even if it's just, sure, it's applause at the end of every number, but, from what we experienced yesterday, it's great because the camera is one thing, but it's a passive object. Whereas an audience is an active object. They're like another cast member in that moment. So you have this ability to create something that only happens that one day in this one time with these group of people. And I think that's such a magical, amazing thing. Yeah.
Wow, the way you put it there is just like, I'm sorry, my mind is just blown. I'm just like, wow, damn it.
But I don't think a lot of people, and I think the music theater and this being a great example of something is not trying to be a movie. For a long time, I think in the 90s, music theater tried to be a movie, and they wanted it to be the same every night. Whereas this is something great. Like, because we invite the audience in. We like, our main character talks to you directly.
Right.
You know, you're as much in this as we are. So if you want to, if you want to go there, we'll go there.
Right.
And it's something that is so. I think music theater is making a big transition right now into that, where it's like, yeah, like, our advantage over film and TV is the fact that we can change all the fly. And that's something that film and TV doesn't have. You go and see a movie, you're going to see that movie. But if you go and see a show, you may experience something that may never happen again, ever in that show. So it's cool.
That's pretty powerful. And the fact that you said about theater, being a student, being a very recent graduate student, actually, students always ask, how can I get there and whatnot? So I know we don't have much time, but if you could look at the camera and tell all the individuals out there who aspire to sort of go into TV or theater or whatnot, a sort of advice that you would give.
It's going to sound stupid, I think, but the best thing for anything that you ever do, but film and TV and music theater especially, you have to work hard. You have to work as hard as you possibly can. And I know even myself forgot that for a long time. When I first got out into high school, got out of high school and booked a job, you're doing a job and you only work 3-4 hours at night because you come in and you do your show and you have all day off. So you just sort of sit around and you watch, reruns of 24 and you're sitting there and but other people, other jobs and people, they work 8 hours a day. We work 9 to 5, people work 9 to 5 jobs. So that's something where I've tried to do that and be prepared. Like, if you're going to an audition, work as hard as you possibly can. And I think sometimes, and myself included, the reason I didn't do that when I was younger was because I was like, if I don't work as hard as I can just blame it. If I don't get the job, I'm like, oh, it's fine. I could have worked harder and I would have booked it. It's fine. But, that's not the case. Like, you work as hard as you can. If you don't book it, who knows? You could have been 3 inches too short or 2 inches too tall or, not pretty enough or too pretty. That happens a lot. So at least then you put it in their hands and not in your hands. So I would just say, work hard, be prepared, and have a sense of humor about yourself and have a sense of humor about the business, because a lot of the time it doesn't make any sense, but sometimes it does, and the moments it does, it will fulfill you and make you happy.
Thanks so much, Gabe.
Cheers, man.